That fateful morning, my wife screamed that she couldn't trust me was when I began to realize I was living within another person's deception, unbeknownst to me. In the kitchen of our home in Naperville, Illinois, I stood as my coffee grew cold, watching the woman I had spent 9 years constructing a life with slam cabinets and weep tears that looked genuine enough to submerge in. She was pointing at my phone, shaking, informing me she discovered a message I had been hiding, insisting that something was amiss and she deserved the truth. And I acknowledged her, not because I was guilty, but because I had nothing to conceal. At times, it's our innocence that leaves us exposed. People who are innocent do not rehearse their defense. They stand there open-handed and stunned, as someone who has been preparing for weeks dismantles them piece by piece. My name is Nathan Hargrove. I am 43 years old. Over the past 9 years, I functioned as a structural engineer for a medium-sized company located beyond Chicago, handling commercial development contracts in the Midwest. During weekends, I engaged in youth baseball coaching. I maintained my own lawn. In all aspects relevant to me, I embodied a devoted husband who had never entertained the slightest thought of another woman. However, this lifestyle was about to change dramatically for the next 3 months. Prior to revealing what I discovered, it's essential you comprehend my inner world at the time. The most terrifying aspect of this narrative isn't the motel, the private investigator, or the video that shattered everything in my living room. The scariest part is how convinced I was that I myself was the issue. If this tale strikes a chord with you, consider subscribing, liking, and commenting on your platform of choice. Your engagement helps these stories reach individuals who might find comfort in hearing them. Carrie and I crossed paths through mutual acquaintances at a gathering in Lincoln Park when I was 34 and she was 30. She held the position of marketing manager for a local healthcare firm. Intelligent, witty, and with an allure that subtly grows on you over time until one day you find yourself contemplating her each morning before fully awakening. We spent 2 years together, got engaged, tied the knot at a vineyard beyond Galena, and settled into a 4-bedroom colonial in Naperville due to her preference for excellent schools and my requirement for a garage accommodating my woodworking tools. For the initial 7 years, our relationship was generally satisfying. Not glamorous satisfaction, authentic satisfaction. The type where disputes revolve around who should call the plumber, which family to visit for Thanksgiving, and whether the water bill is excessively high because someone frequently takes lengthy showers. Ordinary marital friction. Standard marital issues. The change was so gradual that I wouldn't have been able to pinpoint the precise moment it began. Approximately 4 years ago, when Emma turned 4, Carrie shifted into a new position at her job. This brought about increased responsibilities, longer working hours, and extensive travel. I wholeheartedly endorsed these changes. I adjusted my routine, handled additional school pickups, and even mastered the art of braiding hair well enough to earn praise from Emma's teacher, a moment I still hold dear as one of my greatest achievements. However, during this period, Carrie began returning home differently. Instead of greeting the girls, she'd head straight to our bedroom. At dinner, she'd engage in texting while keeping her phone face down on the table, a behavior that felt calculated. She started retiring earlier than ever before, but when I visited her at night, she was awake, quiet, gazing at the ceiling without encouraging dialogue. I rationalized it as work-related stress or simply an adjustment phase to the new role. I convinced myself that marriages experience various seasons, and this was merely a chilly season compared to others. On a Thursday in March, I returned home at 8:30 to find Carrie at the kitchen table with a glass of wine, her expression ambiguous. Before I could put down my bag, she asked, "Who's Lindsay Avery?" Lindsay was a structural engineer on a project I supervised downtown, age 28, proficient, and we had communicated frequently via work emails about load calculations and permit timelines over the past 2 months. I clarified this in a composed manner. However, Carrie wasn't composed. She mentioned she'd seen a text on my phone while I was showering earlier. She claimed the tone didn't sound professional. She asserted that she knew what she knew. In 9 years of marriage, I had never witnessed Carrie cry like that. She wasn't known for displaying emotions freely, always maintaining a controlled demeanor that I admired. However, when she cried, my response was inadequate. I apologized for causing her distress and offered to let her see every email and text conversation between me and Lindsay, which I did, right there at the kitchen table while she quietly reviewed my phone's content. Eventually, she expressed belief in my innocence, admitted overreacting, and explained that work had been tough, sleep was elusive, and she had become overwhelmed. I comforted her, assured us of our well-being, and went to bed believing the matter was resolved. However, I later realized she didn't thoroughly examine my phone. She only browsed for about 30 seconds before returning it. Initially aggressive upon my arrival, she surprisingly backed off when I opened the door. At the time, I assumed it indicated trust. I now comprehend its true implication. Over the ensuing 6 weeks, accusations multiplied and intensified. They grew more detailed, more elaborate, more emotionally charged. There was a female colleague named Dana who was alleged to have texted me at unusual hours. A weekend conference in Indianapolis sparked Carrie's suspicion that I had concealed something. She became convinced of a mysterious incident there. There was also an unexplained charge on our joint credit card for a West Loop restaurant, which she couldn't recall my mentioning. The meal was a client lunch. I had the receipt in my email and showed it to her. For the Dana situation, I asked Carrie to scrutinize 6 weeks of my phone records meticulously with me. Her number appeared only twice, both times during work hours and for brief periods. In Indianapolis, I retrieved the hotel bill, the conference schedule with my name on the attendees list, and 3 texts I'd sent Carrie from our shared hotel room that weekend. Each time I presented evidence, Carrie followed a recurring pattern: accusation, intensity, tears, acceptance of proof, brief silence, apology, affection, only to escalate into another round of accusations weeks later. This led me to document my own actions. Not out of suspicion, but because the consistent pattern left me questioning my identity. I'd return home from an ordinary day, and by nightfall, I would be forced to defend myself against allegations I hadn't made, leaving me questioning my memory, wondering if there were gaps I wasn't aware of, or if perhaps I was careless in ways I hadn't recognized before. That gnawing suspicion about one's own recollections and identity serves as a potent instrument for keeping others off balance, hindering clear perception of their true actions. The pivotal conversation that left an indelible mark on me unfolded on a late April Saturday afternoon. Our daughters, Emma and Lily, were temporarily with my sister-in-law. Carrie and I had planned to rekindle our bond during this time, a proposal she herself had made. I had reserved a restaurant in Elmhurst that she had eagerly anticipated visiting for months. However, instead of finding her inside ready for our date, I discovered her on the patio with her phone, wrapping up a call as I opened the glass door. She lifted her gaze towards me with an expression akin to being caught red-handed, not merely surprised but startled, as if guilty of a particular secret. "Who was that woman?" I inquired abruptly, without any prior introduction, surprising even myself. The response came swiftly: her sister. They had been discussing the girls. It wasn't significant. I gave a nod, ventured inside to retrieve drinks for both of us, paused momentarily with my hand on the refrigerator door, feeling a chilly, unyielding certainty settle deep within me just behind my chest. Upon returning outside, she was already slipping into the house, mentioning she needed to change for dinner. 30 minutes later, seated opposite me at a table adorned with white linen napkins and a candle, she revealed her lack of trust in me. Not an accusation this time, but a statement. She spoke calmly, almost mournfully, as if she had given the matter careful thought and reached a conclusion she regretted having to disclose. She had been attempting to reconcile with the situation, but she couldn't dismiss the sensation that something in me had shifted, that I was absent even when physically present. She believed she deserved a spouse who was completely engaged, and she wasn't certain if I could still offer that. Over a candle-lit dinner, I struggled to find a place within myself where I could hide this without causing pain. I failed. The next morning, I contacted my friend Derek Paulson. Derek and I had been friends since college, and he worked in corporate security consulting from his office near Schaumburg. He knew more about how people deceive each other than anyone else I personally knew. I didn't call him because I suspected Carrie of anything particular. I called him because I was disintegrating and needed to speak with someone who wouldn't immediately advise couples therapy as their only solution. I shared everything with him. Derek, in his natural manner, remained silent after listening attentively without interjecting. When I concluded my speech, an unexpected response came from him. If someone persistently accuses you of something, even when proven wrong, there are typically just 2 possibilities. Firstly, they may harbor deep-seated trust issues predating your relationship. Secondly, they could be dealing with personal matters and require your attention to divert it away from them. I expressed my reluctance towards this notion. He acknowledged my feelings and added that at times, the most compassionate action is to cease being a distraction for others and instead focus on understanding the truth of the situation. I received a private investigator's name from someone professionally acquainted, Ray Castillo, who was positioned near Downers Grove. Derek labeled him thorough, discreet, and valuable without a hint of irony. I saved the number but vowed not to use it. However, 4 days later, I found myself dialing his number. Ray Castillo was a calm, unhurried man in his mid-50s who exuded an air of seriousness along with tranquility. We met at a coffee shop on Ogden Avenue on a Wednesday morning. He carried a yellow legal pad and a pen, but wrote down very little, which I later realized was deliberate. I detailed the situations I'd been facing, the cycle of accusations, the pattern of escalation and retreat, the Saturday phone call in the patio. He listened attentively, similar to how Derek did without filling awkward silences, and when I finished, he posed 3 questions. 1. Has Carrie's work travel pattern altered within the past 6 months? Affirmative, she has acquired a regional partner account necessitating more frequent visits to Milwaukee and Indianapolis. Have you observed any adjustments in her phone behaviors? Yes, she now uses a passcode lock she hadn't utilized earlier, and she moved her phone charger from the bedside table to her closet. Has Carrie made any alterations to her daily routine that she hasn't expressly discussed? She has opted for a gym in Oak Brook instead of the one close to our house, mentioning better equipment. Ray noted the gym's name down. He detailed his standard fees and procedures. He was not emotive about it. He stated he would follow up within 2 weeks. He contacted me in 11 days. Ray shared a link to a secure folder. I reviewed the content at my work desk with the door closed and blinds drawn, spending a considerable amount of time examining the first image before moving on to the next ones. Folder title was Carrie. The individual she was encountering was Tyler Groff, a 46-year-old man. I recognized his name as Carrie had briefly mentioned him 4 months prior, casually introducing him as a new business contact from Meridian Health Partners, located in Indianapolis. He was just another work acquaintance, a detail in one of her larger updates regarding her new roles. Tyler Groff resided in Indianapolis with his wife Sandra and had 2 teenagers in school. He drove a black Audi Q7. Over the course of 11 days, he was present in 14 photos, parking lots, entering restaurants, exiting the same vehicle as my spouse, and 3 images captured on a Tuesday afternoon, when Carrie was supposed to be attending a regional partner meeting in Schaumburg, instead found outside a motel on Butterfield Road in Downers Grove, about 4 miles from our home. 4 miles from our home, I closed the folder. Pondered for a while, then reopened it and scrutinized every picture until I could keep it stable. Ray's note was succinct and businesslike. He had an audio recording from one encounter that he could provide if needed. He provided a summary timeline. He mentioned he had seen the subject and Mr. Groff together on 5 different instances over the course of 11 days of sporadic monitoring. He expressed his condolences and stated he was at my disposal to answer queries. I didn't have any questions. I had all the necessary information. What followed, I considered thoughtfully. I want to emphasize this because I believe there's a tale where actions are made in a fury, impulsively, causing unnecessary complications. I wish to avoid that. I had 2 daughters who would be watching my every move from now on, regardless of their understanding of the situation. I contacted Derek once more. He asked about my well-being. I informed him I was as well as expected following the revelation that the individual who had been alleging infidelity for 6 weeks was actually masking their own indiscretions. Derek concurred. He inquired about my plans. I disclosed I wasn't ready to engage Carrie head-on yet. Not at this moment. Because I had experienced her reactions when she felt threatened, I wanted a firm footing before entering that dialogue. I desired time to consult a lawyer, to organize my documents neatly, and, frankly, to keep Carrie guessing about my equilibrium. Those in control are less likely to anticipate the unexpected if they think they still have you unsettled. I reached out to a family law attorney, Patricia Weston, from a firm in Wheaton, recommended by a coworker who had used her services during his divorce 2 years prior. On a Thursday afternoon, I detailed the situation in her office without any dramatic expression, merely facts and a chronology. My attorney appraised me as a client who had meticulously prepared. She expressed approval of my position. Since Illinois is a no-fault divorce state, infidelity holds less weight than in other jurisdictions, but her focus was on the pattern of emotional manipulation, baseless accusations, and Carrie's specific tactics designed to unnerve me. All these factors would be significant in defining the relationship character and guiding asset division and custody decisions. She urged caution, advising against conversations that could appear threatening or demanding, and suggested patience for the opportune time to reveal my knowledge. I sought her guidance on when that moment was appropriate. She responded cryptically, saying I'd recognize it myself. In hindsight, she was correct. 3 weeks later, Diane Prescott, a woman whose presence instantly commandeered any room she entered, called Carrie's house. Her authority wasn't due to loudness, but a magnetic certainty that made everyone around her adjust their focus towards her. With opinions on nearly everything and unafraid to voice them, she had consistently treated me as a man who might be suitable for her daughter, but not one to grow too complacent about. She phoned me during Sunday breakfast pancake preparation, inviting Carrie's father, Glenn, and herself over for dinner next Saturday en route through Naperville. They preferred a casual, family gathering with no frills. I agreed and expressed my anticipation. After ending the call, I stood motionless by the griddle for a while, then asked Ray Castillo to send me a file playable on a TV. He sent it over in 2 hours. From that phone conversation to Saturday evening, I carried on as usual, just like I had been for several weeks before. Routine. Presence. I went to work, arrived home at my regular hour, assisted Emma with her reading assignments, and attended Lily's spring concert at school where she played a zealous yet imperfect rendition of Hot Cross Buns on the recorder. Carrie appeared more unworried during that week compared to months prior. I observed this change as well. The accusations ceased following our dinner in Elmhurst. She had been friendlier towards me, more attentive. It appears she eased up on her efforts towards me because whatever she was overseeing reached a temporary balance, making things seem stable. Her contentment added an unusual quality to the situation from my perspective. She seemed to be managing her burdens effectively. On Friday night, once the girls were asleep, I linked a HDMI cable from my laptop to our living room TV. I checked the file, adjusted the volume, and arranged it so playing it required just one keyboard press. I then shut the laptop, placed it on the coffee table, and went to bed, enjoying sleep far better than I had in 3 months. 5:30 p.m. on Saturday, the Prescotts arrived, bringing a bottle of wine. As always, Glenn complimented the yard without variation, remarking that it looked good. Diane warmly embraced Carrie in the foyer. Glenn shook my hand and asked about the downtown project I was engaged with, recalling its name, a trait I've always appreciated. Carrie prepared her mother's lasagna recipe for dinner. For the initial 40 minutes, the girls sat at the table before retreating upstairs to watch a movie. A promise of entertainment made earlier as an incentive for good behavior during the early part of the evening. At around 7:30, Carrie, across the table, confided in her parents about issues she and I had been grappling with in our marriage. She acknowledged difficulties with trust, expressing worry about my commitment and presence. Despite current improvements, she felt it was important to disclose this to her parents as they offered valuable insights and support. Diane's gaze fell upon me, mirroring the apprehension of someone whose suspicions were partially validated. Glenn appeared troubled. He glanced successively at Carrie, me, and the table. For precisely 4 seconds, he scrutinized Carrie's face, noting her practiced sincerity, the firm grip on my hand as she explained to her parents about my indiscretion, and then made his choice. Carrie, I spoke with unexpected composure, I believe we should address the issues you've been grappling with. However, there's something else I'd like us all to acknowledge first. Over the years since this incident occurred, I have revisited this part of our narrative multiple times. I wish to assure everyone that I did not derive any pleasure from what transpired next. On that day, we had 2 daughters upstairs enjoying a movie, a guest seated at our dinner table whom I held in high regard, and a marriage of 9 years on the brink of dissolution regardless of whether I played the recording or not. Thus, I propose a brief pause. Was the outcome uncertain between Carrie's account becoming the norm or revealing the truth? I opted for the truth. Striding towards the coffee table, I unlocked the laptop and hit the key. Our living room TV, measuring 65 inches, played Ray Castillo's footage audibly from the dining room table. The initial clip displayed a parking lot and a black Audi, Carrie walking from her car to it, then entering the passenger side. The video was steady, providing a distinct image of her face, with a timestamp visible in the corner. As she pushed away from the table, the second sequence emerged, depicting them at a restaurant in the West Loop. recognizing this establishment as the same one that had been charged on our credit card bill 2 months prior, and Carrie had described as a business dinner with a regional partner. I observed Diane utter Carrie's name in a previously unfamiliar tone. 40-second sequence showcased the motel on Butterfield Road. It needed no deciphering. I halted the video there, opting against playing the accompanying audio. I shut my laptop afterwards. The room remained silent. Carrie stood up, her chair pushed completely backward. Her face transitioned through multiple expressions swiftly and settled into one that could be likened to a person who suddenly comprehends that the structure of the past few months has crumbled instantaneously in its entirety all at once. Every accusation, every tearful altercation, every instance where she made me justify myself, every apology for causing her distress, everything was laid bare now, crystal clear as it truly was. Glenn placed his wine glass down cautiously. He gazed at Carrie. He merely uttered her name, Carrie. His tone said more than words ever could. For the ensuing 20 minutes, I won't delve deeply into the events, partly due to respect for those who were not present, and partly because it's not the crux of the narrative. A dialogue unfolded, one that was far from pleasant. Diane oscillated between disbelief and an effort to redefine the situation in Carrie's favor until Glenn uttered something soft but firm, causing her to halt. Carrie didn't dispute what was captured on video. She couldn't. Instead, she offered context. The marriage had been strained. She felt neglected, and there were factors that led to her predicament. I informed her that I was open to understanding each of those reasons, but not at that moment or without legal representation present for both parties. This conversation was not about that. I was asked by Glenn to provide them privacy with their daughter. I agreed. I ascended to the hallway outside Emma and Lily's movie room, hearing their laughter filter through the door as I maintained steady breathing. I waited there approximately 40 minutes before descending the stairs. The Prescotts were preparing to depart. Deanne embraced me differently than in 9 years of being her son-in-law, expressing apologies sincerely. Glenn shook my hand, holding it a moment longer, and acknowledged my handling of the situation with more dignity than most men would display, marking one of the few times Glenn Prescott has spoken at length in my presence. They departed, leaving Carrie and I in the kitchen. "You orchestrated all of that?" she asked. "Yes," I responded. After a moment's pause, she inquired about when I had discovered the truth. I informed her it had been known for roughly a month. I shared with her details about Ray Castillo and Patricia Weston. I informed her that my response to the accusations she presented may not have been what she anticipated, as I had spent 9 years observing her navigate situations with careful planning and control, and decided that the best strategy for this predicament was to follow suit. She inquired whether I harbored hatred towards her. After giving it sincere thought, I disclosed that I did not hold any malice towards her. I also communicated that my actions signified an end, and these were two distinct concepts. The divorce process lasted 8 months. Patricia Weston proved to be exactly as Derek had described, meticulous, unflappable, and always one step ahead. Carrie employed a lawyer named David Orenstein, who boasted a strong reputation, and I suspect, left her financially drained with expenses that would have been better directed elsewhere. In the end, we agreed upon a reasonable arrangement given the circumstances: primary residential custody of Emma and Lily during the school year, with them spending alternate weekends at their mother's, along with extended time over summers. The Naperville house was sold, and the earnings were divided. I found a new residence in Lisle, complete with 4 bedrooms, conveniently located 8 minutes from Emma's school and 10 minutes from Lily's dance studio, boasting a spacious garage for my woodworking tools. The most challenging periods were those when the girls posed questions that didn't have straightforward answers. At 11, Emma is old enough to comprehend more than what a child should normally bear, leading to numerous difficult discussions following our separation, which I found mentally taxing. In an effort to avoid portraying her mother as a villain during our discussions, I recognized that Emma would establish her own relationship with her mother over time, and it was unnecessary for her to bear the burden of my pain and anger. At 7 years old, Lily was more interested in whether the dog would join me at my new residence. The dog indeed moved to my new house. It seems that Tyler Groff has returned to Indianapolis and reconciled with his wife, though I'm unaware of the success of their endeavor. Carrie now resides in a condo in Oak Brook, close to her workplace. She maintains regular contact with the girls. We communicate through an app suggested by family lawyers for co-parenting purposes. It keeps records and discourages contentious interactions that might lead to courtroom evidence. The system serves its purpose, albeit without warmth. Our relationship is functional, which is sufficient for Emma and Lily's well-being. Unforeseen was the length of the psychological aftereffects from the 6 weeks of unfounded accusations, lingering even long afterwards when the evidence was established, confrontation passed, and divorce finalized. In everyday instances, I would hesitate, experiencing brief bursts of anxiety, not about my actions, but over their interpretation, questioning if I should record them, whether my explanation of events would withstand scrutiny. This is the lingering impact of deliberate, calculated gaslighting. It's not only that it makes you question specific incidents, it erodes the trust in your own perception and its accuracy. The process of healing involves gradually reasserting the right to know what I know. I'm still in the process of this recovery. On most days, I feel like I'm making progress. I've pondered why Carrie opted for accusation as her approach. In our discussion 8 weeks into the process, Patricia Weston expressed an idea I've often revisited since. She pointed out that individuals struggling with something they can't address head-on, be it guilt, fear, or a decision from which they can't retreat, frequently project their burden onto others. If Carrie could cast me as the unfaithful one, she wouldn't have to bear that label herself. By portraying me as the secret keeper, the concealer, the defender of questionable actions, she avoided acknowledging her own betrayal. Instead, her behavior seemed a justified reaction to mine. It functions as a form of emotional structure, and it can be potent if temporarily, since the accused individual is frequently preoccupied with self-defense, leaving little attention for their accuser. However, its effectiveness crumbled when I ceased defending myself and started observing. The turning point was straightforward. After the Prescotts departed, following our kitchen conversation with Carrie and her retiring to the guest room while I went to our own, I spent a significant amount of time in the dark. I contemplated numerous evenings spent facing Carrie at the kitchen table, phone in hand, presenting evidence of actions I hadn't committed. I recalled the dinner in Elmhurst where she expressed doubt about my commitment to our marriage. I pondered over the Saturday afternoon on the patio, the moment she was ending a call when I entered, her brief expression of surprise before regaining composure. Reflecting on the day she first questioned me about Lindsay Avery, the sincerity of her tears struck me, as did my disorientation and swift apology for a sentiment she had fabricated. I must confess I was enraged, yet it's crucial to acknowledge that. The anger was justified, it found a place in me. Beneath it, though, what constantly resurfaced was a sense of weariness. 9 years is a considerable duration to construct something. It's a long time to select a person each morning upon waking and each evening upon returning home. Even when the design of what you built is discovered to have been erected on an unstable foundation, the loss is still genuine. I wasn't grieving the marriage I experienced during the last 18 months. Instead, I was mourning the one I had thought I was part of. This type of sorrow has a unique form. I wish to address those observing who find echoes of their circumstance in my depiction. If the criticisms persist despite proof being presented, it's not someone easily reassured. They require more evidence to distract from their actions. If you feel compelled to continually defend yourself for actions you haven't taken and can't discern your mistakes despite meticulous self-examination, pause and scrutinize them instead, without fury but with clarity. In my experience, the truth is less elusive than people believe. It leaves signs, timestamps, parking lots on Butterfield Road at specific times. The truth, patiently waiting, will reveal itself once you start searching for it. In your search, you will discover it undeniably. At that juncture, you get to mold your identity in the crucible of confrontation. I opted to embody the composed individual, safeguarding my daughters, providing clarity for my in-laws, and exiting the chaos with honor unscathed. On certain evenings, I believe I met that standard. However, on other nights, I rummaged through the past seeking opportunities where I could have performed better. Such introspection may be essential. The moment you cease scrutinizing your decisions is when you risk overtrusting yourself, and I've seen firsthand the price of unfounded trust. Surprisingly, my garage workshop in Lisle has evolved beyond my initial expectations. Originally a pastime to quiet the engineer within me, it now serves as a reminder of choices made. Over the past year since our divorce, I discovered a unique healing power in crafting with my own hands within a personal workspace, creating durable and authentic items that can be verified by tools like levels and squares. I constructed a bookshelf for Emma's room in her new house. It boasted 8 adjustable shelves and a cozy reading nook at the bottom right corner, perfect for a 7th grader to fit into with a lamp and book. She sat there for an hour on the day of installation, motionless. That hour is one of the moments I'll recall most vividly from the past 2 years. Subsequently, Lily asked me to create something for her as well, and following careful deliberation, she opted for a bathroom step stool due to not being tall enough yet to reach the faucet without one. I constructed a step stool adorned with her name engraved on the side and painted her preferred color orange on its top surface. She employs it daily. These are the projects I completed this year. Sturdy, flat, precise. I'll accept that. My name is Nathan Hargrove. I am 43 years old and reside in a 4-bedroom house in Lisle, Illinois, sharing my space with 2 daughters and a medium-sized dog named Biscuit, who, by any reasonable standard, feels too at ease on the furniture, but has never blamed me for anything I didn't do. The girls are thriving. That's the most important aspect, and I acknowledge that I say this aware of how frequently people use it as a way to avoid providing a more challenging response. However, in this case, it is genuinely accurate. Children are stronger and more perceptive than we often give them credit for, and they are also capable of processing complex situations. Emma understands that the events within our family were not a simple tale. She's dealing with it. Lily has a reliable therapist she visits bi-weekly, who notes her maturity in handling difficult situations at her age. Lily comprehends that alterations can occur within people and families, and this doesn't diminish anyone's love for her. She appears to have come to terms with the situation. Last week, she informed me that her teacher explained families could take various forms, and Lily believes her family's form is acceptable. I concur as well. It's not the betrayal per se. It's the allegation. The realization that someone can confront you, contrive a reason to make you feel remorseful, and exploit your own integrity in the process. That's what lingers. Nathan didn't triumph due to his anger. He triumphed because he grew silent and intelligent. I believe this is the key takeaway. When someone tries to unsettle you, sometimes the most potent action is to cease reacting and start observing. If this resonated with you, please comment below. Share your opinions, and for first-timers, consider subscribing. Each week I publish such narratives, so make sure not to skip the exciting content ahead.